I was born in 1936 in Belgrade, and we lived in Senjak. In Senjak, even I remember the address of our house, Petra Mrkonjića 4. The day of 6th of April 41, when the Germans attacked in a surprise, attacked Yugoslavia, the family, except my father that was there on the Albanian border, we entered in our house. In the basement we had a laundry room, and the whole family entered there. The neighborhood, many houses, thought our house, a modern house built of reinforced concrete, is much stronger than the other houses. Many other others came to the basement adjacent to the laundry room and stayed there during the bombardment. I remember I was 5 years old. At once an awful noise, awful shaking, everything was shaking. My grandmother fell on me to protect me. The iron door was knocked out of the hinges and fell on my grandmother, but nobody except some cold wounds and so on, nobody was hurt. A bomb hit our house, and several people in the adjacent basement died, were killed there. When there was a lull in the bombardment, the family decided to leave the house, and nearby there was a house of a friend of my parents. We stayed there the whole day. During bombardment, we were in the basement. Otherwise, the children were outside playing. In the evening, we left and walked out of Belgrade, and we walked to Sremčica. After a few days there in Sremčice, they sent the maid back to Belgrade, and she returned after a day, saying that everything is quiet, all the Germans in it. So we returned to Belgrade, not to the house. My father had his patent office near the Dvor in the center of Belgrade, and the family waited there, probably waited for my father. And my father, indeed, when the military disintegrated, so the government after a day surrendered, the military disintegrated. My father first on his horse rode as much as he could. Then somewhere he bought civilian clothes. Probably they had rumors what the Germans had did in other countries that they conquered. And slowly got to Niš. The Niš, there was already a train to Belgrade with other people like him. And my father arrived to Senjak, to our house. He saw it half in ruins. He started to cry, but one neighbor saw him, told him that we are okay in his office. Since there was a night curfew, he stayed there, and in the morning he arrived to the office. At that time, in Belgrade, there already were posters posted on the walls in German. I have a photocopy, a small size, that all the Jews have to report at the Saimište, and the second sentence, those that won't report will be killed, will be shot. And the family decided to escape from Belgrade to the areas. So my father was born in Subotica, my mother in Novi Sad. First we went to Novi Sad. My mother's parents and sisters with their families lived there. That maternal grandfather, after a few days, said, it's much better to go further north to get further away from the border. We went to Subotica. There we had also relatives and so on, and we were staying in some family dwellings. But my father was twice arrested. Twice. My grandmother, on my father's side, she went to one of the high police officers that was a classmate of my father. And with this aid, I don't know whether he bribed him with money or not, but he was his classmate. On 2 occasions, they released him, therefore. And therefore, the family decided to get further away from there, out of the occupied or reoccupied territory to Budapest. And in Budapest, we lived with some false papers, and we really had almost nothing, no belongings. In beginning of 42, I remember that at once my mother started to cry and cry and cry and cry non-stop for several days. And then they brought to us two girls, one at my age and a baby 6 months old. Later on, found what happened. A Hungarian general with his division entered the Novi Sad with prepared list of the Jews, took them out of the houses, brought them to the Danube, made holes in the ice, started to shoot them one after the other. My grandparents from my mother's side were already there, but they were not killed, so they were spared. And when they went back to the houses, my mother had 2 sisters that married 2 brothers. They managed to hide the children. The children, grandfather found the children. 2 of those children were brought to us. My father was not taken to forced labor, which was really cleaning on the Russian front, cleaning minefields, not with mine checkers, but just walking over the field, and if you stepped on the mine and it exploded, you cleaned it. So most of them did not return because he worked in the biggest pharmaceutical concern of Hungary, and it was considered as a chemical engineer there, and they considered it as necessary for the German war effort. So they kept him there. When the Germans entered on 16th of March 44, they entered Hungary. Then they tried to hide the children in various ways. They have hidden me in a monastery in Budapest, but after 2 or 3 weeks, when American and English bombs started to fall all over Budapest, my mother got very scared and illogically, she asked my father to take me out of, if to die together. And then we were deported, and so with my other sisters. They were all hidden with other families and so on. We were deported to Bergen-Belsen, 44, for 6 months. And it was awful. We never had enough food, so it was hunger and cold, and we had these extra long rolls of coal when they counted us. And since they were people with low arithmetic skills, always there were problems, and then they recounted us. So such rolls in cold in wind and in rain lasted for many hours. We were released in a special exchange at the end of 1944 to Switzerland. Kastner train was an attempt by a group of Hungarian Zionist leaders trying to save 100,000 Hungarian Jews for 10,000 trucks. Obviously the Americans were not willing to supply logistic means to the Germans, and they just tried to pull the length of the negotiations as long as is possible, and after a long period of time they released us after getting money in Switzerland from funds of the World Jewish Congress that was transferred there to Switzerland. Those that negotiated in Switzerland with the representative of those SS people deposited some amount, and then they released us. Not everybody that was with us. We were lucky, about 1,800 or so. We were transferred toward the end of the war to Switzerland. First, the Swiss wanted to deport us out of Switzerland to Algeria. And my father and some others wrote some petition to the president of Switzerland and so on. We stayed there until around September 45, and then we repatriated back to Yugoslavia. I don't have bad feelings about Yugoslavia like I had about Hungary. I have a bad feelings. I never felt anti-Semitism in Yugoslavia. I don't remember it as up to age 5, and I never heard about my parents telling about feeling anti-Semitism there before World War II. And after returning in 45, I did not feel any anti-Semitism. As a child, I had friends, Stefan Glavički, Dr. Stefan Glavički, you can find out what happened to me. He should be my age. We even, we swam, I had a small boat, we used that small boat, we used to swim together to Ada Ciganlia and back as small children. And some other kids. I was a member of the Philatelic Club of Serbia. My father used to take me there to the meetings on Sundays. Even when we got to Israel, I wrote them to the newspaper some letters or articles that were published in their newsletter. In December 48, when Tito allowed, that was the first transport, big ship, over 2,500, maybe 2,700 on the ship, a cargo ship that was transformed to carry immigrants, the Jewish immigrants from Yugoslavia. Later we found out that it carried also some Czech arms that were smuggled despite the embargo to Israel at that time. And it was sold, by the way, 2,500 on a cargo ship. There were 3 levels, every level great, and everywhere 3 beds, one after the other, and people, when they were throwing up on the top, it went down. It was awful. Since the human cargo was not as heavy as ordinary cargo, the line on the ship that should have been emerged up to there in the water was several meters above the water. So the ship was tilting from side to side. Most of the people had awful seasickness had. The engines broke down when we were in a storm near the Greek islands. The captain has sent SOS signs because the waves were pushing us toward the stones, the rocks. And in the last moment they were able to repair the engines. And the trip that today by boat takes 2 days or so, it took 14 days. 14 days we arrived to Haifa. I started to go only in September 1950. Until then I did not study. Without really having the certificate of finishing elementary school. They accepted me maybe because I was good still in mathematics, maybe. And except for mathematics, physics, and chemistry, I struggled for the first few years in the high school. Although I finished in the specialization, realistic school specialization, so sciences. And but I struggled because I did not have the proper knowledge of the Hebrew language and neither of English. All those that started high school here already had at least 4 or 5 years of studying English at elementary school. I did not have. In military, I was an artillery officer. Here it is a must. You cannot. You go first to the military service. As I finished, I started studying mechanical engineering. Got a BSc, immediately continued and got an MSc in mechanical engineering. My professors suggested me to go to study for PhD in business administration, specializing in production management and operations research. Operations research is really mathematics and mathematical statistics. And indeed, I went and was accepted by Columbia University. There I studied at the School of Business Administration, but took also courses at the School of Industrial Engineering, both of them. And my wife already, when I got to my PhD studies in Columbia University, my wife already got her PhD from the Hebrew University, so she was on postdoctoral studies at Columbia University. And after it, we returned to Israel. I got a job at the Tel Aviv University as a lecturer. 2007 or 2008, I got from the Industrial Engineering Society in Israel a lifetime achievement award in industrial engineering. I believe I am the second or third Israeli person that received lifetime achievement award in industrial engineering. So this should attest to my contribution to that field, both in Israel and worldwide. When I was in the military, there was a period where I had time, and I decided to start training on myself running up to marathon. And I ran marathons at the time. I participated in the first marathon in Israel in 1956, but really my best results started when I started my PhD studies in New York. I met there a group of walkers that were either Olympic walkers or had Olympic aspirations. And I trained with them. but I was very good at long distances, and I became even a guru there, guru for long distances. And the first time I have improved the U.S. record for 50 miles on track. 50 miles. 50 miles is about 8.5 kilometers, which was the oldest record on the record books of United States. I improved my record to 7:52, and in 1972, in the Olympic year, I flew again, paying my own way, and improved the record, setting 7:23. 7:23:50, 7 hours 23, which was not only a new US record, a world record, which stands up today. In 72, while a lecturer, I participated in the Munich Olympic Games. I was in the same building where the rest of the team was housed. We were 5 apartments, one besides the other, 1, 2, 3. The 4 and 5, they were just 4 was for doctors, and the 5 for the head of the mission. In the 1 was for the coaches, 2 for athletes, and 3 for athletes. The terrorists, and they were one besides the other. The terrorists attacked number 1 and number 3. Number 2 was sandwiched in between, and I was there. And we escaped. I even not only escaped. My other 5 team members, apartment members, they left and escaped the building. I went to apartment number 5 to warn the chief of the mission of what happened, so taking the danger and so on. But for a while, I thought it was sheer luck that apartment 2 was not attacked. The distance between the entrance door to apartment 2 and 3 was about 30 centimeters or 40 centimeters. So it's one besides the other. And until some time later, I came to the conclusion that it was not luck, but planning by the terrorists not to attack apartment number 2, because in their advance planning, when they investigated everything, you always have to get information where you are going to attack and so on. They have found out that in apartment number 2 there are 2 marksmen. Where we have been in the apartment, 2 marksmen that had excellent results in shooting, and that in the Olympic Village it is allowed for marksmen to take their rifles and ammunition with them to their rooms, and therefore they did not want to risk of being shot back if they attack, and they get armed resistance by the apartment members. Therefore they did not attack apartment number 2. I visited only once in 65 with my wife when we traveled from Israel to New York to start my PhD studies. We decided in advance that we will make a stopover in Yugoslavia. At that time, I still had an aunt in Novi Sad and one in Zagreb. And I had also some relative, some cousin of my mother in Belgrade. Her son still lives in Belgrade, and he was a journalist with Politica. It's a very nice and friendly city. Most of things I never knew, but I had memories of a few places. One of the places was near where the ministries are, and hill, so uphill, and the ministries on both sides. There, since I was forced, my parents to go to a solfege class on the top of the hill on the right side. I recognized Terazia. I recognized even or looked for the building. In the middle of Terazia there is a building which is a kind of an island with, when you are looking toward Kalimegdan, it has a round edge. I remember there was a stamp shop, a SWIB, Srpska Filatelistička Bureau, and I looked for it now. I have at home 2 catalogs from very old catalogs of Serbian and Yugoslav stamps. On the front page they have the building with written there SWIB, also advertisement. I went to the shop there asking whether that's exactly the shop. I had no idea. I was taken to the Serbian Olympic Committee. The driver took me from the hotel, and I asked him whether he has a little time, which is close by, he has to pass. He told me it's close by, because in Senjak, and he put it on the Google, passed by, and really when I passed the house, this is the first time that I really felt some strange feelings. Obviously, I am very sad on 2 things. I am sad that that person did not let me just to see it. I did not want it. I want to recall some memories. So it's very rude behavior. But I am also sad about things. First, when in 1948 we emigrated to Israel, that after that we had that suffering during the Holocaust, and that once the state of Israel was established, and we all remembered and knew that what Jews need to have their own homeland, and we left. They wanted to leave, and the condition that was set up by the Tito government at that time, that those that want to get an exit permit to Israel have to give up all their property to the country. Now try to tell the population of Serbia that if they want to go to live in Germany or in any other place, they have to give up all their savings, all their property to the government, to lose everything what they had, just for that right that every free man has in the world to move wherever he wants. And therefore my family gave it up without getting any restitution for it. So it is a sad feeling. I accept it. They have done it, but it's a sad feeling.